Welcome, everyone. I'm Maria Christina Owl, founder and director at Sacred Future. You can find me at sacredfuture.org online. And I have created this webinar to talk about my and my husband's experiences in the Yucatan over the last 5-6 years. This is sponsored by Holistic Channeling. And Holistic Channeling is a course, is a modality that I have created. And this modality supports what I call out-of-control mediums and channels to hone their craft, to no longer be afraid of their gift of channeling, and to be able to come into confidence and embodiment and empowerment around their gift, and especially sovereignty. So holistic channeling, I like to offer periodic webinars open to everybody to give you just another angle, another taste of the gift of channeling. So I thought it would be fun to talk to you about our experiences in the Yucatan, because they've been really life-changing and deeply profound. So if you're here, you are likely moved by the Mayan culture. Maybe you've had your own experiences down with the archaeological sacred sites. Maybe you are somebody who has this burning question of, where do we come from? Like, where did human beings come from and where are we going? And the Maya is a culture that people look to, as well as the Egyptians and the Tibetans, you know, these ancient civilizations that link back to Atlantis, to Lemuria, and to the beginning of time of human being DNA on this planet. So in this webinar, I'm going to dive into that very inquiry of where did we come from? And let's look at the Maya and their journey through time and space to discover some answers to that. I'm also going to talk about, probably start with Dwayne's and my experiences tending to the mother grid in the Americas, in particular Mexico and Central America, and why this has been so important for us over the last 10 years, why we have focused there. Dwayne also, hi honey, see your name. Dwayne also, before we connected with each other as partners, he was already traveling to Tibet, China, and Peru and other places, working on the grids and the portals to clear them. So by the time we came together, he had this body of work that he had been focused on with the grids and portals and vortexes, and I had been very steeped in the Americas and the Mexican culture and the Maya and the Huichol. And when we came together, we saw that the Yucatan was calling us to do specific work there. And it almost like waited until we were coupled in a sacred marriage. And then we had what we needed to go and be of service there. So the Yucatan, the state of Yucatan, so the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico is that whole southern kind of lobe that sticks out into the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And it meets up at the bottom with Belize. And it kind of includes, I would say, includes Chiapas, which then goes west and over to the west coast, north of which is the state of, or it's my last name, Gutierrez. Tuxtla Gutierrez is the main city up there, and then it goes into Oaxaca. So this whole southern region is known as the Yucatan Peninsula. Chiapas, we perhaps you know, has become known because of the Zapatista movement there, the Mayan resistance to the reversal grids and the anti-life programs from the negative beings on the planet. And they really said no and protected their sacred way of life in Chiapas. Chiapas used to be part of Guatemala. I'm not exactly sure when it became part of Mexico. In just this Yucatan Peninsula, the state of Yucatan, in just that state, which is where the city of Merida is, and that's right in the Gulf of Mexico next to Campeche, and Quintana Roo, which is where Cancun is and goes down the coast there. So just the state of Yucatan alone has approximately 2,000 Mayan ceremonial sites. Each one of these has an average of 500 temples. Yes, only 1% of these are open to the public. So wrap your head around that. That's just the state of the Yucatan. And so then when you think of the whole Maya lands, including Belize, Honduras, Guatemala, and you think about the vast civilizations that were there and how much has not been discovered. So the sound penetrating radar that the military has been using over the last decade, 20 years, and now it's coming out into the public, is showing us that there are still yet to be, and maybe never will be, unearthed Mayan cities underneath the ground that just are massive. And the pyramids are massive. And they are just under the ground. When Dwayne and I and our friend Danielle, I'm going to include Danielle in this because she's been a big part of every single journey to the Yucatan. We're a kind of trio when we go down there to do light work. So when the three of us were in Palenque in 2018, we did a journey with a Mayan local, and he took us into the jungle, and we went into they look just like holes in the ground, but once you got into them and went through like a little passageway, you suddenly saw that there's stone walls on both sides, and then suddenly it opens up into a room underground, looking up through the ceiling. You see the tree roots coming down and the sky above. We were sitting inside of probably a residential structure, a home of stone, outside of Palenque, in the living quarters of some probably common folk. And there we were underneath this hill, this jungle hill, inside this room that had never been excavated. There were drawings on the walls, and you could tell that the tree roots, as they continued to expand, were basically crumbling these chambers inside the earth from these structures. And this man that we were with, he explained that he has been bringing people on journeys through the jungle to explore for decades. And throughout his life, he said this used to be a whole structure of many, many rooms that you could go through. But now it's just this one enclosure that we can sit in and breathe and do a meditation, because the jungle is taking it over. The roots are crumbling the structures under the ground. So when these sacred sites are discovered by the archaeologists, they are usually just stones. They're just the stones that used to be stacked into the structures. And as they unearth, they find the foundations and they reconstruct it. They build it back into what they presume it probably looked like. So when we go to these sacred sites, the structures that you're seeing have been rebuilt. And and I'm thinking of like Uxmal and Palenque. They put them back in the best way they could. Palenque is interesting. If any of you have been to Palenque in Chiapas, it's one of the most powerful sites in the world. And I just want to mention it right now because this is the site where we met another elder at this site, and he was an amazing man. His name was Victor. And when we got to the parking lot of Palenque and we were walking in to buy our tickets, he was in the parking lot with this pamphlet, and he was like, I'll show you, I'll be your, they all come up to you and they're like, I'll be your guide, hire me as your guide. Well, he was different. He kept saying, like, everything those other guides are saying is bullshit. They're just saying what they were taught to say, but it's not the truth. My father was there, and I was there as a child when they excavated this. The French archaeologist was here excavating it, and I saw it, and they took pictures of it. And this is a French brochure showing the original photos taken from the excavation of Palenque. And in it, he unfolds it, you can see there are carved into the stone of these structures Hebrew menorahs, Chinese dragons, I'm not kidding you, Sanskrit, and the Mayan glyphs. And he said in the 50s, before they opened up this as a national park to the public, the government had them sand off all of those signs that there was a root civilization that was all connected and all one. Nobody was to know that. I'm sure they found other things as well. They unearthed King Pakal's tomb there. And of course, they find the bones of a giant human being with an elongated skull with, I think, 9 Chinese jade bracelets on one wrist. And I believe he had something else in his other hand. But he was buried just like the Egyptian pharaohs. Well, around the same period of time, that same era, when they unearthed, it may have been King Tut, I don't know, but it was a pharaoh in Egypt. When they unearthed his tomb, he was holding coca leaves and tobacco from the Americas in his hands, right? And so this man, Victor, told us all of this. And he was emphasizing that what we think is our history is not. There is so much more that has happened. Very close to, well, actually, it's not close at all. I don't know why I said that. There is another ruin that I'll show you pictures of in the slideshow called Calakmul. This is not, many of these names are not the original names. They were given to these sites by the archaeologists. Calakmul is found in a bioreserve, a massive bioreserve in the Petén jungle, right as it borders Guatemala. If you were in Guatemala at the site of Tikal, you go straight north and you hit Calakmul. It's the same jungle system, it's the same forest that those are connected by, with nothing in between, no civilization or villages in between. So Calakmul is where the archaeologists found, inside one of the huge pyramids, they found the carvings of space people. And these are like astronauts. They found carvings of what we would call aliens, alien faces, humanoid, but not like our face, different, larger eyes. As well, they saw the carvings of a depiction of our sun with ships flying out of the sun coming to Earth. There was a Mexican film director there who wanted to make a documentary about this. And they put in their permit, and right before they were to begin filming, the Mexican government came in and shut it all down. And they told them they could never access this place again. When we pilgrimaged to Calakmul, we went to that pyramid, and there is a door still into steps going down deep into the inside of this pyramid. But there is a massive, thick metal gate door, padlocked, like melded shut. So you could not get in, no matter how hard, unless you have some kind of special like way to get through that metal. So it is shut off from the public, yet we can still go and be on the pyramid, as far as I know. We did meditations there. We felt the energies there, that this was a spaceport, indeed. And so this is all kind of opening stories to talk a little bit more about the Mother Grid. Around 2017, I started channeling messages inviting us to go to the Yucatan to not create a mother grid. The mother grid's already there. What do I mean by mother grid? As you know, likely you who are here, the planet is crisscrossed by ley lines. Those ley lines go through sacred sites that we would call sacred sites, mountain ranges, and even in the ocean. And along the ley lines and at the nodes where they cross are vortexes and portals. Vortexes and portals are different. Vortexes are upwellings or inwellings, spiraling up or spiraling down into the earth, of strong electromagnetic energy. These are often places that have strong healing energies, yet also they can be otherworldly, like a stargate. They can have an influence from another planet in our galaxy, and they can make someone feel ill, actually. It's not always in the best interest of a human organism to be near a vortex. Portals are exactly that. They're doors. The portals are a fluctuation of time-space that you can move through if your body is fine-tuned enough, and that you can shift your brain waves, you can shift your frequency, and then walk through that portal into a more etheric location. It could be another dimension of this earth. It could be another planet. So what we were given instruction was to go to Mexico and Central America and to begin to help to clean and clear these portals and the ley lines. And we did that by bringing charged crystals from Arizona, these tiny crystal quartz points and other stones as well. And we were to pray into these crystals, because the crystals hold the energy you put into them. So we put in strong prayers for the balance of the masculine and the feminine on earth, the re-arising of the Great Mother onto the planet, the Great Mother consciousness, and the balancing of male and female on earth. And we were putting these crystals into cenotes, into different places on the pyramids. We threw one down the steps at Calakmul into that opening that was gated off. And we did a lot of prayer there. So with this instruction, we were also told that there was a Genesis stone. Never heard of this before. I don't know. At the time, we didn't know what this meant. All we were told was to go to Palenque to meditate, and that there would be the rising of the Genesis stone, that it was time for this, it had to happen. And so we did this. We went to Palenque. We prepared ourselves, psychologically, spiritually. We cleared ourselves in ceremony. And by the time we did the ceremony, we were in the jungle, and we brought through the wisdom that it was like a body of wisdom that had been lost to us personally. So the Genesis stone, meaning that Genesis implies the beginning, the origin point of our DNA. There is a archive, you could call it a seed bank, of human genetics, of the original starseed genetics, inside the earth, underneath Palenque, underneath the Maya lands. I don't know how many there are, but we engaged with the one at Palenque. The knowledge, it's time for that knowledge to be given to the people. By meditating and having the intention of being a clear channel there, we felt the energy go from our root all the way up our chakras to the crown, and it like crowned us. It opened up a channel of remembering that could never be closed again. That's what a key code is, right? It opens the doors that have been locked. The energy showed me, and this is before I met Victor and heard all the things about the Egyptian glyphs and the Chinese dragons at Palenque. I didn't know any of that at this point when we did the meditation. But in my visioning, I saw all of this Egyptian, what we call Egyptian, it's actually Atlantean symbology. I saw the pyramids with all of these Egyptian-style glyphs. I saw Sanskrit-style glyphs, and I saw Hebrew-style glyphs in my vision. Mind you, this was a very huge, I don't know, how massive journey that we took with this guide in the jungle using las niñas, the little children, los niños. So this is the mushroom medicine, psilocybin. And that's what this man specialized in. That enabled us in Palenque to perceive things we couldn't perceive with the veil down. Therefore, when we went into meditation, we started immediately toning. So since that moment, the research I've done has shown that the Mayan pyramids, and in fact, all the ancient pyramids, are built according to frequency, according to sacred geometry. They respond to sound. They are built, each pyramid resonates at a different frequency, and they talk to each other. And this has been studied by researchers who go in with measuring devices, technology that can measure the frequency, and they ping off each other. It's been shown that they ping and they respond to each other's resonant fields. So the pyramids are talking to each other. This technology, this Atlantean technology, was also built to respond to our resonant field. Our resonance stems from our DNA. When we approach this ancient technology of the Maya, of the Egyptian, the old ones of our ancestors, that structure is going to respond to our resonance, and it's going to open to us and give us the mysteries, or it's not, because we aren't clean and clear and aligned in our mind, body, heart. When we were in the jungle toning, we went to a peak experience of sound, and outside we went beyond time and space, and all these images were shown to us of the one culture, of the one root race that we're all a part of and stem from. The next day, that was validated by meeting Victor, where he showed us the images from the French brochure, and he told us his stories. It all made sense why we saw the images we saw. The pyramids are built in levels. Pyramids represent the ascension of human consciousness into our true godlike nature. From the underworld, because there is an underneath of a pyramid. There's more than just what's on the surface up. It goes down deep, chambers down deep in the earth. That is Xibalba to the Maya, the underworld. And there are layers of Xibalba, I believe there's 7. And then from the surface world, the world of humanity, it goes up. And it goes up through each layer of consciousness to the crown where you're crowned. And you have self-realization, you remember who you are. To the Maya, this is a headless state. You take off the ego, the mind, the thinking, chattering mind, and you become just vast expanse as consciousness. So when you're shown images of Mayan stelas or codices, paintings, where there is a being without a head, or you see an image like at Chichen Itza, there's a wall of carved skulls, and it's just skulls. This implies that somebody has attained mindlessness. They have attained, they've worked their way up the pyramid of self-consciousness into the expanse of the oneness, the unified. It does not mean they were beheading people and they were a death cult. The Maya never forgot where they came from, the star people. They never forgot their origins. Codices imply that they came from the Pleiades, also Orion, the ancient Orion ancestors. Perhaps both. Perhaps they jumped from Orion to Pleiades to Terra, our Earth. But they never forgot those seeds from Atlantis and Lemuria. And their whole purpose and trajectory, their sole mission as a people, as a DNA, as a race, is to attain union with the infinite creator source, is to go home, is to go home. Therefore, the pyramids have 9 levels to them. And I'm going to show you some images of those 9 levels, and you'll see how they create their pyramids to symbolize that ascension of human consciousness. Very high up in that ascension process are these gods, the Balams, the lords. Balam means Lord. It also means jaguar. For the Maya people, jaguar are gods. They are the gods, the creator gods of the earth. They're the gods that came and spread to the 4 directions. They're the gods that created a beautiful paradise for humanity to live in and taught them all they needed to know. They're the gods that brought their DNA and had their wives. They were all in couples, in wives, wives and husband couples, Balam couples. And they, the white, the red, the yellow, and the black. And the 4 couples brought the 4 sacred root DNA strands and populated the earth. And so the Balams are very high up in that. When we look at consciousness, you see at the top of the pyramids, often there is a depiction of jaguar. There is a doorway high at the peak. There's a little house, and you'll see jaguar teeth, that you go through the door into the inside rooms of the pyramid at the peak of that pyramid. Jaguar is at that peak of consciousness. They are gods. Jaguar in everyday life is related as the Maya, for the Maya, the jaguar is the Christ consciousness for them. The Christ consciousness that is unconditional love, that is unconditionally forgiving and accepting of our journey of human beings, of learning and growing, making mistakes and getting back up, reincarnating to continue the journey of growth. The jaguar is a protector, especially of the human heart. At Chichen Itza, the temple of Kukulkan, I believe this is right. This is information from an amazing man, Miguel Angel, who's in Merida. He runs the organization called Casa Kin, K-I-N, Casa Kin. Highly recommend you connecting with him and his organization. When we were in Merida this last October 2022, Miguel, and his business partner of Casa Kin, Trudy, who's an amazing channel. I'm interviewing her actually this week. She channels the ancient Maya as well. We went to the archaeological ruins of Uxmal with them. And Miguel taught us about the pyramids and consciousness. And he showed us the temple of the Great Mother at Uxmal, that they renamed the Temple of the Magician, but it's of the Great Mother, the Great Cosmic Mother, this massive, incredible pyramid. There's a jaguar mouth at the peak of that pyramid. And he's the one who was teaching us about how the jaguar tends to the heart of humanity. And he said at the temple of Kukulkan, there is a chamber inside that's called the chamber of the red jaguar. That represents the heart. The jaguar is protecting the heart at the center of that massive pyramid in Chichen Itza. So the heart is what guides life, what guides decision-making, what guides how to live in harmony with nature, what guides living in harmony with our relatives. It is the most powerful guiding force to the Maya people. It reminds us that we are all one. It reminds us that there is no separation between us and everything in existence. And so when the Mayas say in Lakesh, ala kin, this is the way they greet each other. This is the way they acknowledge each other. In Lakesh, I am another yourself. Ala kin, you are another me. Isn't that beautiful? In Lakesh, ala kin. They're recognizing that connection, that we are all part of this root genetic genesis experiment on this planet. So in our work with the Mother Grid, once we went back year after year, we felt the activation of these portals in the Yucatan. Things were connecting. We felt that the heart energy of the Maya people was awakening and moving north across into North America, and awakening and bringing the mother healing light into North America through the underground waterways, especially the underground river systems, the water, the healing waters. And this was awakening this great Pacific spiral of love light that also spirals from Alaska down into Tahiti up to Hawaii in this great spiral of awakening mother energy on earth. While we were there, we went to many, many different sacred sites, and we discovered some incredible energies there. We felt when the energy was off and manipulated, and we did our best to support the harmonic field coming back to those places, especially at Chichen Itza. But there were certain sites that were so profoundly moving us to tears, where the sacred ancient Maya ancestors came and talked with us, and there was this resounding energy of, we are so glad you came. We are so grateful that you are aware that we're here and we have so much to share with you. So I'm going to share my screen right now and show you a slideshow. I want to show you some of these sacred places. Okay. I hope you're all able to see this well. This is an image of the Tzolk'in, the moon calendar of the Maya. This represents the center of the galaxy, the center of the Milky Way galaxy. This is called the Hunabku, the center of the galaxy, galactic center. Perfect balance. Looks like the yin yang, and it was to the, that's the same premise to the Maya. This is a sacred sweat lodge, Mexican sweat lodge, Temazcal. Here we have Solomon Bay. This is where we bring our groups when we go on these sacred pilgrimages. We stay here at Naushabal on Solomon Bay, just north of Tulum. So this is the first site I want to show you, the site of Tulum. Tulum ruins is dedicated to the wind god. The wind god is connected to the planet Venus. Venus, this symbol is, the number is 5 for Venus. So everything in Tulum is around the number 5. This is the temple of the wind god right here, if you can see my pointer. Here is the Castillo. This is a place where the shamans would do their work, and it was also where the warriors would look out to sea to protect the village. Here's the temple of the wind god on this point here. We had an honor to go one night on a full moon. We were the only people there sitting on this ledge, looking out over the full moon on the ocean, meditating. It was profound, absolutely incredible to connect with the ancestral energies of Tulum. This is one of the most beautiful sacred sites of the Maya because it's right on the ocean like this. This is at the Jaguar Temple in Tulum, not Tulum City, but across the street, it is Chelha ruins. This is another most powerful site where there were jaguar priest initiations and honoring the jaguar. And when we meditate there, Dwayne and I were able to see, literally see these, like the veil parted, and we could see the initiation rites happening for men around connecting to their headless nature, accessing higher consciousness. There's the painting still intact. That is an original, thousands and thousands and thousands of year old painting inside of that jaguar house. There's water everywhere. This is a cenote that connects down into the river system underneath the Yucatan. Water everywhere. This is where the jaguars come and drink at the Jaguar Temple. Drink water. This is another profoundly sacred site. This is Koba. Koba is just inland from Tulum. Koba city was vast, and it was known as one of the most, the spiritual center of the Maya lands. This is the largest pyramid that has been unearthed at the archaeological site open to the public. You're not allowed to actually climb that pyramid anymore. We feel really blessed that we had that opportunity. At the top of the pyramid, we have these images of the descending god. The Maya believed that the gods descended from the sky. This is the head, these are the legs, and they came down to earth, and they brought gifts for the people. This is at the very peak of the pyramid. So this would represent the peak of human consciousness, oneness with cosmic consciousness. This is the view from the peak of that pyramid. You see another pyramid here. That's likely the observatory. And look at that vast, beautiful jungle. And here's a rainstorm moving across the jungle. Morpho butterflies are everywhere. They are so connected to the ancestor realm. And when we meditated at Koba, I connected with and channeling my father from that lifetime I spent there. And it was the most profound experience. I was in two worlds that were equally real at the same time. I could see Koba in that time. My father was sitting with me, and I was there in this time period with Dwayne. And this morpho butterfly came flying through that sacred temple site we were at. And it landed right on this leaf and let us get that close to it. I was in tears. This is Chichen Itza. This is not vibrating. It does not really vibrate at the mother energies. When we were there, we had to do profound clearing work, like so much clearing work. We were, of course, over the decades and decades, many light workers have been doing work at the sacred sites, and we were just another wave of that, part of that. This is the temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. Kukulkan is the creator god that came and brought reminded the Mayans of and trained them in their ways, their star ancestral ways of Atlantis, perhaps brought them from Atlantis across the sea to the Americas. Perhaps that was Kukulkan that did that. I am not sure. But when Kukulkan departed, just like Jesus, just like the Buddha, they said, I will return. Thoth also, Enoch, these beings that were of ET origin, they were very godlike, and they all left the earth saying, I will return at the end of this age. That, my friends, is the age we are in right now that is ending, and many people await their return. The plumed serpent, this is a symbol of Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl in the Aztec language, the plumed serpent. So, of course, the serpents are at the bottom, the earthly bottom step where the humans walk, level of the pyramid. This is our dear friend and brother, Freddie. He's a Mayan shaman. When we go to Tulum for our pilgrimages, he's the first person we see. And we go into ceremony with Freddie. We do Temazcal. We do about 2 different sweat lodges with him in the Mayan way. And then we're purified and we're ready to go into our light work on the ground. Here's his altar, beautiful altar. One of the places that we visit all the time there is Cenote Sac Actun. It's one of the most sacred sites I've been to, sacred cenotes. Cenotes so the whole Yucatan is limestone, and there are underground river systems. And every now and then there is an opening, a lake or a cave that opens into the underground river systems. There are many layers of the underground river systems, more shallow layers and deeper layers. And these limestone in particular is said to be almost like a Faraday cage, like it actually contains electromagnetic energy within it so that it can't escape, which is interesting. So as far as doing meditations, it's very powerful. You go down into this ladder into the earth, and you see this. And this has because there are floodlights that have been placed all throughout the cavern to illuminate the cenote. These are ceiba tree roots. Ceiba tree to the Maya is the tree of life. It is the only tree whose roots break through the limestone and can go down to drink water in the cenotes, in the river, underground. It's pretty amazing. There are tiny little fish and mollusks in these waters. There are bats living up inside the ceiling. The energy in these cenotes is profound. It is, to the Maya, this is the underworld. Remember I said there's the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. This is what the Maya call Xibalba. the lower world. In many cenotes, deep in the earth, the shamans would go and make offerings. The bones of the royals were placed in special places inside these cenotes. Here we are getting into the water. And I need to show you, this video. I want you to see this being who's with us in the cenote as we're swimming. As Virginia, our beautiful friend who's taking this video, this being right here came in and is checking us out as we swim. She's following it with her camera. At first you want to say, oh, it's the reflection of the water onto the lens, right? But she is not following, or she is following it. She's not moving her camera and it's following her. So at this point, you're going to see this being is going to check Dwayne out as he gets out of the water. He can't see it.
Is it shallow?
He is going to get out of the water, and this being is taking an interest in him, and you'll see in particular where it goes. Around his right side, his heart, his left side. It's a big being. It's all the way up here as well as down here. And then it goes to Danielle. Her back, her front.
This is a big pile of roots.
Perhaps there are two beings. There's one here, one here. Danielle is meditating with the Siba root. It stays interested in Danielle. So that's just an example of some of the interesting experiences we have while we do these pilgrimage. We do encounter so many beings. This is Miguel Angel, director of Casa Kin. This is our journey to Uxmal. Here is the Temple of the Great Mother. And this is a good image to see the layers of consciousness all the way up to the celestial realms, from the earthly plane up to the celestial realms. This is the human journey of awakening. You used to be able to climb this pyramid as well, but you can't now. Here is the side view of the pyramid and the back. Here it is here. This is the jaguar with the mouth open. The pyramid is facing east. The sun rises this way and goes over the pyramid and sets this way. The Maya believe that as it comes down into setting, that the sun goes into the jaguar's mouth and the jaguar swallows the sun into the heart of the pyramid. From east to west and into the center. And then there's the mouth of the jaguar. And then in the morning it rises again. This is the cycles of regeneration, that cyclical nature of life, and that the heart is renewed and refreshed in the morning and lives another day, blessed by the Balam, the gods and goddesses. Here is another way that jaguar was teaching the people. This is a two-headed jaguar representing the yin and yang, female and male. And Miguel had us stand and put our paws out because the jaguar paws are out, facing out. So we stood and put our hands out to face the jaguar and just stood to feel the energy. And this is, we figured out, the female, and this is the male. When the woman faced the female jaguar, paws to hands, we felt drawn in, like we would fall forward, inward. And when we would face with our hands out to the male jaguar, we felt like we were being pushed backward, which was very interesting. This is the balche tree, very sacred tree used before every ceremony. Drinking, it can put you in a state of connection with God. It's not a full psychedelic, but it alters you. So you see balche trees growing around these sacred sites, especially where the shamans would do their work. I hope my internet is okay. I keep getting a sign that it's, I hope I'm not freezing for you guys. Here is that two-headed jaguar. This is the balance of the male and female energies that bring us into unified consciousness in ourselves. We want to attain that balance in ourselves. There's the jaguar. It's believed that if a jaguar roams on your land, you know, where you live in the Yucatan, if you have a jaguar that passes through your land, it's a blessing. But you do want to keep your pets indoors because they'll eat them. The jaguar is depicted with a third eye. Look at that, beautiful. On the pyramids, wherever the jaguar is depicted, here's the beautiful alliance of the Maya people with the jaguar. And the third eye, so the jaguar represents that awakening of the pineal gland in the third eye. Here's a depiction, somebody painted a mural of human jaguar, but also with, what is it, Lakshmi, or like a Hindu god, but in the Mayan, in a Mayan symbolism and meaning. This is the turtle house at Uxmal. You see the little turtles up here. Aren't they beautiful? Little things like this. They made temples to every living thing they shared life with. This is an amazing... This clapping only happens with a few pyramids. It happens at the temple of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, but also with the temple of the Great Mother at Uxmal, where you hear the echo back in this high-pitched sound. And that is said to be the call of the Quetzal bird. The Quetzal bird is the most sacred bird to the Maya, connected to the infinite creator. And that's why the name Quetzalcoatl is connected with Kukulkan, right? Because in more northern climates, the Quetzal bird is mostly in the jungles. So the hummingbird is equal to the Quetzal bird in its sacredness. So here's Dwayne clapping at the pyramid and getting the Quetzal call back. There's the Quetzal. Beautiful birds. Labna is one of the most beautiful sacred sites that we visited as far as energy. These are all pictures from Labna I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to read to you some of the channeled messages that came through for us. We went through this doorway here, and we were sitting near this, what I call a medicine wheel. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of information It's the one thing I don't have, you guys. I will tell you though. So the Labna beings, when we were sitting here in Labna, the hummingbirds came to us and surrounded our heads. And in the recording of that channeling, all you hear just like hummingbirds everywhere through the channeling. And they were very glad that we came. They told us that deep beneath the earth, there were grottos where their holy people were buried, and that there is a crystal skull also down there that is not like our human skulls today, but it was much larger, like a giant skull with an elongated back cranium. And they said that this being had a silica skeleton, and that these were beings that came from the sky to their people to teach them and give them the star knowledge. And that we actually have, they called it a crystalline cortex in us, that it is time for humanity to unlock again. They brought us then up from the grotto in the earth up into the clouds and had us commune with their consciousness in the clouds and feel our own crystalline nature beyond time and space. And then they brought us back down to earth, and they helped us to have a protected pathway of remembering within us, that we would not forget what they had just imparted to us about our crystalline cortex, and that we now can start to retrieve the knowledge that had been kept from us for so many thousands of years. The energy of Labna was pure love, and so different from Chichen Itza. This is one of those very special sites where you could be the only people there. You can just go in and lie down on the earth and just meditate and be there, and nobody, you're going to see nobody. Unlike Palenque and Chichen Itza and these more Uxmal, they're very tour guides and can be very commercialized. But the energy here was so powerful. Remember I told you about Calakmul and the alien images that they found inside the pyramid. So this is the pyramid where those are. This is the bioreserve. You're looking down towards Guatemala and Tikal. You can see all these pyramid, the other structures sticking up out of the jungle. Calakmul had a more contracted feeling for us. We felt the lockdown energy of the government. There was almost like a, I don't know, like incantations had been done so that consciousness couldn't penetrate and get the information. And we were there, I mean, so much to see, these stelas with the glyphs, so much to see, mind-blowing. I mean, gorgeous. But the energy felt off to us, and we didn't really want to linger there. So we went to Kohunlik. Kohunlik was nearby, and this place, again, not the actual name given to this Calakmul and Kohunlik, these names are given to the sites by the archaeologists later, the Spaniards, but not the original Mayan name. Kohunlik is a node on the mother grid in the Yucatan that is pure love. This is where we had a really incredible encounter with the ascended Maya. And I actually put the whole transcription of this in my book, Planetary Ascension, and there's the transcription. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you, because it is about, and I'm going to start to transfer into Atlantis now and really get into Where did the Maya come from? How did they get to Mexico from Atlantis? And where did they go? Where did their civilization go to? Just going to take a little sip of cacao. The ascended beings of Kuhunlik speak. So I want to invite you to just be with these, be with this location. This is the Temple of the Masks. Just as you are in communion with us now, we were in communion with higher dimensional support systems as well. They informed us of the coming changes, of the coming contractions in consciousness, of a great dark cloud that would move through the consciousness of humanity and darken the light. We saw what was to come in visions through the ceremonies with the plants and mushrooms, and through our communion with the higher dimensions. We, of course, were not like you, but of a different genetic strain. We were much taller than you. And Dwayne said, thus the huge steps. At most of the pyramid sites, there are normal human-sized steps, but then there are also these structures that have huge steps that are really awkward for our human bodies to go up. The ascended beings speak. We came up from South America. There was a great pilgrimage from Peru, what we know as Peru, Brazil, and the cities of gold and light there. We came not on foot, but through the portal system and crafts to arrive here. So this being is talking about their ancestors thousands of years before. They came through the portal system where they went from earthly to etheric and then arrived in this earthly plane again. It was a time of experimentation on Earth, a time of territorial land grabbing, you could say, in the beginning. So these genetic experiments were happening. Star seed clusters were landing in different areas of the globe post-Atlantis and claiming that as their place to perpetuate their genetics and to grow and live, etc. And then through the generations, much of this history was lost and forgotten and became just legend that was revered and used to teach the children. We started losing our intelligence around our beginnings. Our pineal glands began to get smaller. We began working with the mushrooms and plants to help us understand. We saw that the time of complete forgetting was coming, and that in this digression there would be factions that would take advantage. So certain races would come in who had a dominator, conquering mindset and take advantage of this digression in biology from a more advanced ability to a limited ability. And then they said, it is difficult to explain at the level that you can understand how many pieces, how many groups were invested. We wanted to live in peace. We left the experiments. We wanted to be independent and sovereign and grow of our own accord. For we were a hybridization of 3 different races. We love this planet and we chose to be here, and raise our children and to live simply. Yet by the time the cloud came, the illusion began to seep through the consciousness of people all over these lands, and we already were so far removed from our ancestors and their wisdom, it was hard for us to relate to their reasoning and star knowledge. So when we had access to the influence of these higher dimensional helpers who they started communing with, they were so grateful and started getting information about the times they were living in and that this time of forgetting was about to begin. So those who are keeping the wisdom alive tried to continue to hold everyone in Kohunlik in the awakened consciousness, that they all might ascend, they all might go forward into and not lose that wisdom again. But it was very difficult, they say, when you're in that position of knowledge, to not manipulate those who are in the ignorance, to keep them safe. We saw after a while that the influences of other races coming in was too tempting to those who were ignorant to the knowledge. And so there was an ascension of those who chose to not stay and regress into the full amnesia. We went into the bliss of our light bodies. They then said that this is the time that we're living in now, meaning an ascension moment, a choice moment. The descendants who remained lived for a time with the original values and then moved further and further into forgetting competition and conquering, and they were indeed conquered. All the cities were abandoned, and the sickness from the west and the east all flooded in, and the people began to die. This is a very common scene when you consider when a people become so far from their original instructions that their own consciousness will create a catalyst for death and rebirth. So this is some of the wisdom that we received from the giants at Kohunlik. This is the Temple of the Masks at Kohunlik that was unearthed, some of the most ornate stonework that has been found in the Maya lands. I want to invite you to take a breath and just feel the energy of these ascended beings. And as you take a breath, I'm going to invite us to link with them now and receive a blessing. And as we link with them, these beautiful friends, get a taste of some of this powerful energy down in the Yucatan, in the Maya lands. I'm going to read a Mayan prayer in English. Feel that inner jaguar protector around your heart, helping the portal in your heart to stay open to your star knowledge. This is the prayer of the 7 galactic directions. With each direction, we take a deep breath and we allow ourselves to be touched by the ancient star wisdom in our DNA. Facing the east, from the east house of light, may wisdom dawn in us so we may see all things in clarity. Spiraling counterclockwise to the north, from the north house of night, may wisdom ripen in us so we may know all from within. Spiraling counterclockwise to the west, from the west house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into right action so we may do what must be done. Spiraling counterclockwise to the south, from the south house of the eternal sun, may right action reap the harvest so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. Hands to the sky above, from above house of heaven, where star people and ancestors gather, may their blessings come to us now. Take a breath and receive those blessings. To the earth, from below, house of Terra, may the heartbeat of her crystal core bless us with harmonies to end all war. Take a breath, be blessed by the Mother Earth. And then we come to the center, hands on the heart. And from the center, galactic source, which is everything at once, everywhere at once. May everything be known as the light of mutual love. O yum hunabku evam maya emaho. O yum hunabku evam maya emaho. O yum hunabku evam maya emaho. We receive this blessing. We receive the blessing from those beautiful beings at Uxmal, Labna, Kohunlik, those Mayan people who kept the mother grid safe, the star knowledge safe. Back to the slideshow, I want to show you Atlantis. The star knowledge is the most important. I call it star knowledge, but it's really the Genesis stone. It's the knowledge of our Genesis. We hold it in our DNA. Even though at this point we have many strains of DNA within us from many different star systems and the indigenous of this planet, it's still in us. And all of the hybridizing of our DNA has made us actually stronger and more resilient. If you're a human being on the planet today, you are the celebrated descendant of billions of ancestors who worked very hard that you may be here, alive today. When Atlantis existed on the planet, it was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it was the hub. It was the hub of spiritual knowledge. It was, you could say, the university where people would go to remember, to learn, and bring back to their communities. It is where the shamans were trained, you could say, the priests did their work. And it is where the alien genetics, not a great word, it's where the extraterrestrial founder race genetics still lived. There were pure strains of genetics that were purely Pleiadian, Arcturian, Syrian, especially Syrian. And then there were the mixed genetics of the Syrian, Pleiadian, human, the human being, the indigenous human that had been hybridized to a point of awakened consciousness and had this amazing mixture. Atlantis falling was the fall from grace. This is the fall of the Garden of Eden, you could say. Atlantis sinking happened in 2 or 3 phases. And this was, I want to say, never meant to happen. I mean, in a sense, you could say everything's meant to happen, and it's all divine, and it's all part of evolution, and this is true as well. Yet, it was a malevolent influence that sank Atlantis. This is when the Terra, our planet, went into the reversal black hole and went into a regressed time that digressed and digressed and digressed to a time of forgetting completely. which is what we're coming out of now, the amnesia. At the time of the sinking of Atlantis, the high priest made sure, I don't know what else to call him, the high shaman priest made sure that the history, the true history of the planet and divine humanity was protected and would never be lost to the future generations. They split up and took groups of people from Atlantis out through etheric tunnels to other continents on the globe, such as what we know as the Himalayas, Egypt, and South America, and the Yucatan. Atlantis is I'm not going to talk about Lemuria yet. I'm just going to talk about Atlantis. I want to read to you now from some amazing books about the history of humanity, called the Transylvania Sunrise series by Radu Cinamar out of Romania, and his opportunity to become part of a secret department in Romania that dealt with paranormal experiences, and this underground hall of records that they found in underneath a mountain range in Romania that was an advanced technology from our ancestors, built for us to find after the forgetting times at the end of the age. And Radu's teacher, Caesar, was able to access this hall of records deep underneath the earth because his frequency, he was a very special being. He was born awake for these times and for this purpose. He was able, through his resonant field, to communicate with the structures, and it responded to him and unlocked for him, therefore giving humanity access to this hall of records and to this holographic archives and crystalline archives, records and technology that allowed them to experience past events as if they were there, hovering and witnessing. So I want to read to you directly from these books. This is another depiction of Atlantis and the pyramids that were on Atlantis, the islands. This is the main hub, this huge giant pyramid here of connecting to the star people. Spaceports, right? This is where ships were landing. There was trade, there was constant interaction with other planets. And this all was lost at the fall of Atlantis. So Caesar, I'm going to read this directly to you now, and I'm actually going to stop my sharing so I can be with you. Caesar is answering the question of Radu on Mayan civilization's destruction. The Mayans, he says, the Mayans were a people with an old culture with exceptional knowledge. To them, the break between the physical plane and the subtle planes, at least conceptually speaking, almost did not exist. After the Spanish invasion, their priests quickly realized that the only viable alternative to the threat of extermination was a massive exodus of the Mayan population from the physical realm into the etheric realm. In other words, to make a vibrational leap in their existence. Such actions were quite rare in history and only occur in exceptional cases when the situation cannot be resolved otherwise. And this was the case with Atlantis falling and coming to the Yucatan. Miguel Angel explains Atlantis is mentioned in the creation story of the Maya, the Popol Vuh, the cosmogenesis story of the Maya. And Miguel's elder teacher taught him that the correct name of the Popol Vuh is the Popol Vuh, which means time story. The Mayans tell in their origin story of a certain time when they all spoke the same language, when they lived in a paradise called Tulan. Another name for Tulan is Aztlan. Tulan has different names, Aztlan and Atlantis. It's described as an island surrounded by water that was a paradise. When people were there, they were in another level of consciousness. The sinking of Atlantis changed the course of life on Earth, and especially humankind, forever. It was a fall from grace. These are my words now. The only way the elders could ensure their knowledge would be preserved was if they sent special groups of Atlanteans to safety on other continents. When the great wisdom teachers helped people before Atlantis sank, certain teachers chose groups of people to lead from Atlantis. These leaders would lead these groups from Atlantis before it sank. So this is from Miguel Angel and his elder who taught him again. Osiris brought a group to Egypt with the people holding the mysteries around life and death. Miracocha brought a group of people with power in the mind that could levitate stones to Peru, South America. Itzamna chose a group of people that had pure hearts and wisdom and brought them to the Yucatan Peninsula. The Maya were those people. Lord Itzamna is known to the Maya as the god who brought the honeybee, the stingless Mayan honeybee. He brought many gifts to the people. Turns out he's the one that led the Mayan from Atlantis to the new land. Miguel goes on to say, when the people arrived in the Yucatan, they asked Itzamna, "What is this land?" And he answered, Mayab, M-A-Y-A-B. Mayab translates to Ma is few and Yab equals land, the land of the few, the land of the chosen ones, chosen from Atlantis to survive and continue the sacred DNA line in another land. The Maya are the chosen ones, those who were chosen to restore his or her link with the divine creator of life. They never gave up. Those who fled from Atlantis never gave up. They were devoted their existence to preserving the star lineage, the star knowledge, and the star DNA, and to not go into complete forgetting of their true nature. That's why they created the archives and the records underneath the pyramids. They went down into the inner earth and they hid the true history of the planet and humanity in these archives, in crystals, in holograms, their advanced technologies, and they created these storehouses of knowledge, what I call seed banks, that will one day we will have access to again, which is this time now. So I want to go now to something from Radu again and his teacher Caesar from the Transylvania Sunrise books. So Caesar is explaining now that how they migrated. How did they get across the ocean? And let me just read this. This is from page 213 in Forgotten Genesis. I highly recommend this book. Highly recommend it. Forgotten Genesis by Radu Cinamar, published in 2019. Migration from that level of society spread to certain areas of the planet, especially Egypt, South America, and or the eastern and northern areas of Europe. So this is from Romania. This is from somebody in the secret programs, the secret departments in Romanian secret government, right? It correlates perfectly with the Mayan codices that I just read you from Miguel. As well as the information that we received in the channeling from Kuhunlik, from the giants of Kuhunlik in the Yucatan, when we channeled there in 2018. He goes on to say, interesting to see that the Atlanteans who remained to Earth did not travel to other areas using expected transportation like ships, crafts. They neither traveled by water nor sailed with their high-performance equipment. What happened in those last weeks and days before the final destruction was actually a passage through the etheric plane on the ground. For example, they arrived in Egypt by land after first moving into the etheric plane and then returning to the physical plane when they reached what was called Kem, the Black Earth country, or in northern Africa, we know as Egypt. The giants of Kuhunlik, if you remember from the excerpt I read, they told us that they came up from the golden cities of Peru, the Incan Empire. That was an etheric city. The city of light, the golden city of the Incan Empire, was an etheric city. That's why the Spanish could never find it. Just like Shambhala, at the time of Atlantis, Shambhala went down into, you could say, into the inner earth and became an etheric city. Avalon became an etheric city. And those who could still, the Mayan priests or the shaman priests in any culture around the world, that some were able to continue to access light body and move seamlessly between the etheric cities and the physical cities and cultures. But most of us lost that ability. I want to go now to the end of our age now, the closure of our age now. Baktun 13, the end of 144,000 years of 2012 of our Gregorian calendar. We come to the end of an age, and another civilization is giving way to what comes next. We are moving from a forgetting time into an awakened time. The portals that have been sealed and protected into the etheric cities are opening to us, and there will be invitations for certain people who are in the love light vibration to go and be have access and tours and to learn within these etheric cities. As well, the inner earth people are going to come to the physical plane and teach us and bring us some technology to support humanity to come into a harmony again with the universe. I want to read this from Radu and Caesar about how the Maya went into the etheric cities when the Spanish came, and an experience that I had this last October, feeling them inside of a cenote on the other side of a rock wall, feeling that this was actually a portal that we will one day have access to. I could feel them, their consciousness touching me. So I'll describe that story after I read this to you. Radu asks Caesar, how is it possible for an entire people to move from one plane to another? So where did the Mayan people go? They went into the inner earth. Inner earth civilizations are etheric, and at the core of the earth, they are astral. The etheric cities, the doorways into the etheric cities were opened to the Maya people, and a call went out by the shaman priests to wherever they had migrated in Central America and South America to come back, because they're going to safety in the inner earth, to the etheric cities. And those who chose not to go could stay on the surface and go into the amnesia. And that is not a judgment. Those who chose to stay, that was their sole mission, to be the descendants of, this lineage, and to stay in the physical plane and to continue the line here in the third density through the forgetting times, keeping it strong, keeping it whole, never stopping with the ceremonies and rituals, never giving up on humanity, and being strong in hubs around the planet. The indigenous cultures on the planet are the keepers of the bridges. They are the protectors of the bridges that link humanity to our true heritage. And that's why we have such profound, those of you who have done indigenous ceremony and met true medicine people, we have such emotional responses because our remembering is being stimulated. So Radu Cinamar answers, the Mayan priests knew very well the area of passage into the etheric plane that was in one of their jungle towns. The Mayans understood the importance of the communion between man and nature, and that is why their cities coexisted extensively with the surrounding vegetation. The only problem was that their other authentic Mayan groups had migrated and had to be gathered from other areas of the Incan Empire in order to achieve that transition between the planes. In this way, they could escape the madness of the Spaniards and their desire to kill them. The Spaniards' desire to kill the Maya. Caesar told Radu that there was a general call to the Mayan population, who were scattered throughout the Incan Empire, and they began to run to the special crossing place where there was a large portal, which is a space-time discontinuity known to the Mayan priests and sages. The area was defended for about 2 months by a large number of Mayan soldiers who created a corridor of protection for the civilian populations coming from different areas of the empire to avoid possible attacks by the Spaniards. So how does Caesar know all of this? He received this information by his access to the Hall of Records underneath the pyramids in Egypt, by touching the etheric crystal there and having an experience, a time travel experience, where his astral body went to this time and witnessed it firsthand. So he is speaking from a firsthand experience of astrally witnessing this, stimulated or catalyzed by the advanced technology they discovered underneath the pyramids in Egypt over the last 20 years. Okay. On the other hand, he says, the robbery of the conquerors was not a war or a continuous battle, and it did not take place in one place. There was no real fight, but rather one messy robbery. Attacks by the Spaniards were mostly spontaneous when they simply seized a village or a city in the jungle. On the other hand, the Mayan soldiers had a precise mission to counter such attacks in order to ensure the escape route of the civilian populations to the area between the plains. Radu asked Caesar if he's seen this personally through using the time travel device discovered in Egypt. It was more like the war with the Americans in Vietnam. It was not at all clear to the Spaniards how much they had conquered, and not just from the Incan Empire, but also in the area of the Yucatan Peninsula, where the core of the Mayan sages remained. This is because near the Great Passageway, the physical plane often blends into the etheric plane, so that the phenomenon of psychological blindness is in full force. The wise men of the ancient Mayans had the power to manipulate the surrounding reality through their specific invocations and occult methods. You could meet a group of 20 conquistadors, and a little further on there would be a Mayan village where normal activity went on without the Spaniards having any idea of its existence, even if they passed right by it. They simply did not see that village. As far as they could see, there was only jungle. Such strange phenomenon, which was often repeated, seemed quite confusing to the conquistadors, but in the end, their increasing numbers would have led to the extermination of the Mayans had they not taken the radical action of leaving the physical plane and moving into the etheric plane, where they could safely continue their existence. In fact, this moment had been predicted many hundreds of years before by the Mayan priests. The transition to the etheric plane could not be done under just any conditions. There were only certain areas and only certain periods when the transition from the physical to the etheric plane could take place, like solstices and equinoxes. It seems that a certain part of the Mayan population, about 1/5 of the total pure gene group, did not want to go into the etheric plane, preferring to remain in the physical dimension. For the most part, it was based on the law of affinity, that is, vibrational frequency, that did not allow a certain category of people to go through that passage. The first ones who passed into the etheric plane were those who met the resonant conditions of the frequencies, because some of the Mayans were not prepared from this point of view, even if they wanted to cross the portal. This is kind of overlaying with what is happening right now on the planet. I saw, however, that many of them were helped by the shaman priests who stood near the gateway and supported them in the process through the powers that they held by temporarily raising their individual vibrational frequency so that they could cross into the etheric plane. Once they reached beyond, those beings were able to maintain that vibrational frequency, thus managing to remain in the new plane of existence. Radu asked Caesar about what the portal between the planes looked like. And Caesar replies, I was watching closely what was going on there and seeing the events. I clearly realized exactly where the crossing was made, but nevertheless, I could not see any distortion in the boundary area. There was apparently no discontinuity of space. I could not see anything that could have hinted that there could be an ethereal plane. Instead, what I noticed was that when the Mayans approached the area to cross it, something seemed to happen in their being, because each one of them was shaking with a fine tremor. I was interested in the phenomenon, so I focused on the beings that crossed the area of spatial discontinuity. I felt that before passing, those whose level of consciousness was high enough perceived the city and the jungle from which they came, but at a certain moment, they then saw how much larger and more developed a city of light was beginning to spread out before them. In which case, the jungle vegetation faded and no longer existed for them. So this is the etheric city, just like the city of gold in the ancient Incan Empire, a mythic city like Shambhala. This is me talking, the giants of Cujunlix said they traveled into the Yucatan from the Incan city of gold, so this new information tells us that the ancestors of the giants we spoke to migrated out of the etheric city of gold into the physical realm to pursue a life on the surface. Then they said, by the time the giants we spoke with were choosing to leave, the stories of their ancestors were just legend, used as teaching for the children. They were losing their connection to their origins and their divine abilities, and their ascension gave them an opportunity to reclaim their true inheritance rather than sinking further into forgetting. The giants left and ascended to higher they said went into their light bodies. And so this is very similar to what Caesar is describing here. Those who were ready to ascend were called by the priest shamans to go through the portal, and it actually was located in Guatemala. What Cesar is describing, this very specific portal is in Guatemala. He says, those who did not have the ability to move into the etheric plane were still observing their old city in the jungle, but they were confident because they knew that there was something else beyond in the subtle dimension. When they reached the priests who were guarding the invisible gate of passage into the etheric plane, the priests helped them, raising the vibrational frequency of their consciousness for a short time, but as much as was necessary for them to see the city from the etheric plane and pass through and beyond. The priests were not changing them physically. They were creating a frequency field for their brain waves to shift. They went into a unified consciousness in their being, and then their eyes opened. They could see the etheric city of light and proceed beyond the threshold. So if you've ever wondered what happened to the Maya, here is a first-hand account from a spiritual master observing it. I want to tell you the story of 10,000 columns, and then I'll close the webinar. I'm going to take a sip of cacao. When we traveled to the Yucatan this last year in 2022, our instructions were to open to a celebration of unification of the masculine and feminine energies. That now more than ever in our modern world, the frequencies of duality were coming into balance. Surprisingly, when we got to the Yucatan, we witnessed a lot of construction in Tulum, a lot of development. A train is being built from Tuxtla Gutierrez through Palenque, around the bottom half of the Yucatan up into Tulum, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, to Merida. And this is going to bring a lot of tourism. It's going to bring a lot of work. There's many different viewpoints on this train, making it more convenient, of course, but also it's going to really change these little jungle villages forever. And so though we were told it was a celebration, we also were witnessing certain things that were difficult for us. Yet the frequency there was higher than we'd ever felt it before, and that's unmistakable. We met incredible people, Doña Anselma, who is a bee shaman in Merida, outside of Merida. We met an incredible artist who channels her work from the ancient ancestors, Patricia. We met Miguel Angel and Trudy from Casa Kin. We went down to Tulum and Coba, and we deepened with our friend Virgil from Casa Itzamna, and they're working with the bees and getting the sacred honeybees out into the jungle to the Mayan midwives to support the healthcare system, the traditional healthcare there in the jungle villages, getting them the honey and propolis made by the bees. Incredible work, incredible farming and eco-villages, and people waking up, the young generations caring about their ancestral ways. And so all this was paralleling the insanity of an industrial AI culture that is infiltrating that area as well. And drugs, drugs and human trafficking it's just horrible what's happening there. And in the midst of it all, we find ourselves always surrounded by the most high vibration people and in ceremony. This last year, we were invited to meet an amazing woman whose family has been living in the jungle on this piece of land, her ancestral land, for multiple generations. Our friend Virginia of Eco Tour Adventures, Maya Riviera Adventures, brought us to her land, this woman's land, to meet her and to experience the power of this sacred site they discovered there. At this sacred site, I'm not going to tell you details exactly. They did have an archaeologist come and carbon date the artifacts in the cenote they found there, and they're over 2,000 years old. Depictions of jaguars, of alligators, of the sun. There are clearly ceremonies happening there. It was before the time when there was water in this cave. It was actually dry cave where rituals were happening. When we entered into this cave, I felt my brainwaves shift immediately. We were in our group, that we brought down with us for the pilgrimage, and people kind of dispersed throughout the cenote to meditate and to sit with the altar and commune. The love, it was a very heart-centered feeling, vibration in the field. I sat down on an altar and I started to meditate. The first thing I felt was a visceral physical experience of wings opening up at my back and spreading wide. Like they looked like dragonfly wings to me. And I felt it before I visualized it. I think my mind then visualized it after I felt it. And right then I saw a veil dropped and I saw this guardian Mayan man come and stand before me. He was in a blue regalia. He had blue feathers on his huge headdress. He had blue paint on his face. And he just looked at me and he recognized that I could see him. And he didn't blink. He just stared at me and he telepathed, "Why are you here?" Because he knew that if I could see him, I had reached some level of spiritual ability. And so if you have a spiritual capacity to see between the worlds, then there's some level of initiation you've gone through, and therefore you have to know what you're doing there. If you're at a power site and you know better and you have some wisdom, you don't just go casually. You go with intention, with purpose, with prayer. And I did, of course, have a purpose. I let him know my purpose, which was, I'm crossing a threshold of turning 50. I turned 50 in November. And I am willing to cross this threshold awake, aware, and learn the lesson that I am meant to learn, wide awake at this 50-year decade crossing. And I ask for your blessing. If there's anything for me here to access or remember, thank you. He seemed to be happy with that answer. He didn't smile. He just faded and disappeared. And at that moment, I stood up. By the way, I was crying and crying. Yeah, I couldn't stop crying. And in fact, the altar I was sitting on, all the women in our group who took time to sit on that altar same thing happened to them. They just couldn't stop crying. And in sitting there crying, that I felt that there was an energy of the mother crying for her children. I knew it was not my grief. I was feeling the grief of hundreds and hundreds of these ancient Maya mothers holding their children who had been wounded in battle, and that they were going to either live or die inside the earth in this cenote. Remember, this is the underworld. This is Xibalba. Ceremony done in Xibalba is about death, transformation, and rebirth. So I knew that. And as I sat there and I felt these mothers holding their sons with wounds, not knowing if they would be spared and given life again or die and go into their light bodies, I felt their tears. At that point, the initiate would walk from that altar through a corridor, through up out of the water was like this corridor of jagged rocks that made a trail through it. It was almost like the back of a dinosaur or a dragon with the scales on their back. It was like a bridge through the water that you go from the altar up and walk and then down. And then there was this deep part of the water that got dark into an alcove, into the cave back that wasn't lit by the daylight coming into the cave. And it was just all into darkness and back into this alcove. And this is where you would go into the water and go through your transformation. Much of our group had just been led through that by our friend Virginia, and they all moved on, and now it was just the darkness with Dwayne and myself, and Danielle. We took our turns going into the water. So when I went into the water, I was aware of all of this material from Romania. I had that very alive in me. I understood that these archives of records were being opened up all over the world, these arcs of information. And I knew the inner earth civilizations were reaching out to us at that point. And I wasn't thinking about that in the moment. All I was thinking about was this, knowing that in Xibalba there is death, transformation, and rebirth, and that was my prayer for myself, to be blessed with my own resurrection into this next decade of my life. So I walked into the water, and I knew to just lie backwards. So I lay back on my back and closed my eyes. And my body started spinning in the water. And I felt for sure I was creating a whirlpool. And I'm like, what is Danielle and Dwayne thinking, looking down at me, spinning in the water so quickly? And I opened my eyes, and everything was still. I wasn't spinning at all. My body wasn't spinning at all. It was an internal spiraling that was happening. You could call it dizzy. And so I closed my eyes again, and everything was spinning again. And so I just surrendered into the spinning as I lay in this beautiful water of life in the earth. And the guardian appeared to me again. I just heard his voice very clearly in my head, and he said, "What is your choice?" And I knew he was talking about to live or to die. And for my own meaning, I answered, I choose eternal life. And to me, what I'm saying when I say that is that I choose sanity, the harmonic universe, the infinite creator, the oneness. I do not choose the death of digression into amnesia, into the loss of the divine human being DNA. into the madness of enslavement. I choose sovereignty. I choose eternal life, is what I said out loud into the space. At that point, the spinning stopped. I sat up in the water, and my whole body, it was like I was pulled by a magnet into the darkness of the cave alcove, with my right arm shot outward like this, and my right hand was being pulled with an even stronger magnet all the way back to touch the back of that dark alcove wall, the wall of the cave. And I just was glued to it. I couldn't pull off it. I didn't even try. And in that moment, my whole being was just buzzing with energy. And I felt the consciousness of the etheric beings, the Maya, on the other side of that portal. I felt them. I felt their consciousness. I felt their love. I felt their eyes witnessing me, even though I couldn't reach beyond. I wasn't in a resonant field to move through the portal with them and access the city of light. But I knew they were there. I knew it was an access tunnel into the inner earth. I knew I was being acknowledged. And all I could say to them in that moment was, I feel you. I know you're there. And we will meet one day. And then my hand, the minute I said that, my hand was neutralized. I kind of fell backward with the release of the magnetism. And I got out of the water in a kind of a stunned state with so much to integrate. The integration process from that trip, there were so many things that happened in that trip, so many incredible people that we allied with. The integration process continues. Every time we go to the Yucatan, we have these absolutely incredible experiences. I'm going to close. I'm going to close my talk, showing you the rest of my slideshow here. This is Ekbalam, another stronghold of the Great Mother. Ekbalam means star jaguar. You'll see here, this is Xibalba, the underworld, and the beings, the guardians, the gods down there. This is where you plant the seeds, the middle world, and here's the tree of life growing up into the cosmos. These X's are the Mayan symbol for transformation. As we grow and evolve, we transform, and we transform. Here's the winged being. Ekbalam is the only location that has been unearthed that depicts Mayan winged beings. The jaguar is up here. Here are the teeth. And the celestial beings. This is in Xibalba, a close-up of one of the gods of the underworld. Here's the jaguar, and the doorway always goes through the jaguar's mouth. You go into the mouth of the jaguar, into the heart, entering in to the jaguar's mouth. You see a headless man here, lost his head, meaning awakened in his consciousness. Here's the jaguar with the third eye, the priest depicted, priestess. Here's the winged being in the celestial realm at the top of the pyramid. Here's another mural, third eye, on a serpent body. So it's a Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, jaguar, human being, trinity here. Again, here's the whole image. Here's the descending God. Remember, they believe, the Mayas tell the stories that their helpers came from the stars. This is Casa Itzamna. This is our alliance with Virgil. These are the stingless, yes, no stingers, Melipona honeybees of the Yucatan jungle. They make the hives. These bees are pollinating the medicinal plants of the jungle. Therefore, the honey is medicine. It's not used recreationally like for your tea. It's used for medicine. It is very potent and very healing. So is the propolis that the bees make, the royal jelly, etc. Here are the Melipona bees in their hive. Here is Mama Jacinta. She lives out in the jungle and she is being gifted a hive. She's a midwife and a healer. She is training the young Maya women in her gifts in this trade. And Virgil is devoted to creating, to gifting Melipona beehives to the grandmothers out in the jungle. We have teamed up with him to do that. And it takes about $300 US to bring a whole hive with the accoutrements out to the Mayan grandmothers. So we're just starting that fundraising. We haven't put up the website yet. We're still in the planning stage, but I wanted to give you a heads up if you want to get involved. Mama Jacinta is teaching us in Mayan, she only speaks Mayan, about the medicinal plants of the jungle, and then Virgil is translating in this image. Here we are, they made us this incredible traditional Mayan meal, and we're feasting. And this backyard here of Virgil's Casa Itzamna in Coba, the minute you walk back, your consciousness shifts. He built everything in his property in alignment with the sacred pyramids of Coba and the elements. So the temple of like the jaguar is in alignment with Casa Itzamna, and you keep going on that trajectory and you hit the temple of Venus. It's so powerful to be in his space. Here's some of our beautiful pilgrims from last year. And this is the end of the slideshow and my presentation. This is a beautiful rainbow, double rainbow that appeared to us. Solomon Bay. This is a view from our retreat house where we stay every year. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to join us in October for our annual Awakening the Galactic Heart pilgrimage to the Yucatan, we're going to continue the celebration and the ceremony and deepen with the inner earth light body Maya and our on the ground relatives. It's really a journey of personal transformation. Ask anyone who went with us last year. We were all profoundly changed by the trip. And you can be too. The trip is October 13th to the 20th in 2023. You can go to this webpage to find out more and to put down your deposit if you are serious and if you're really being called to go. So thank you, 1,000 thank yous for joining me. It's been a blessing. And this is going to be uploaded to my YouTube channel, Sacred Future YouTube channel. So if you know anybody that might be interested in all this information, you can send them there. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of information. I love you. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to do a closing prayer. All that is holy in this universe, Yumbotik. Thank you. Yumbotik. Thank you. Hunab-Ku Galactic Center. We live linked to you, tethered to the mind of God. We exist in harmony with the great rainbow crystalline resonant fields of your creation, of your breath. We inhale into the heart center of our beings, and we feel the celestial families, the star families surrounding us, cheering for us, celebrating us that we have made it through the forgetting times. The doors are open now. Those with eyes that are open will see. Those with ears that are open will hear the call. May we each find our way to our true destiny, to our true fulfillment of potential on this earth. And may we hold the door open for others as those Mayan soldiers held the way clear and protected for the Mayan civilians to go into the etheric realm at the start of the forgetting time. Now those portals and those pathways are being held open for us to emerge into our light bodies on the surface of the earth. And all those who do not stand in the light, all of those that would hinder this ascension of our whole planet into light body, you can leave, for this is no longer your home. This place is no longer about domination and enslavement and power over and trauma. Now we rise again. Terra resurrects. We are once again the Atlantean knowledge and wisdom disseminates through our consciousness and unlocks within us all over the globe in every human being. May those of you starseeds who feel called to be one of those who holds the way clear, who protects that bridge, that link, that key code for others to find their way. Thank you. May you be blessed. May you be protected in your sacred work. And for each of you, thank you. You're beautiful. And I look forward to being with you again on a future holistic channeling webinar, perhaps the holistic channeling courses coming up in April and May, or maybe in Tulum with us in October. And with that, aloha. Thank you.